Are we only in the second inning of the sports card pricing crash?
Let's talk about something important. Are they all here?
All but one.
Well, I'm going anyway. Let's talk about something important.
I hate talking about innings when it comes to sports cards, but we are going to dive into this topic. Just going to share a few thoughts I've got. Make sure to stick around. Hello friends, back from Florida. I survived. There was actually an alligator out in the lake behind my dad's house. We did survive the alligator. We are back in North Carolina, excited to be back home, but good to see the fam as usual. How the heck is everybody doing?
I feel pretty good too. I think I finally got some sleep.
I haven't said this lately on my videos, but please don't forget to subscribe to the channel below, the big red button. It does help kind of get the word out. And also we are going to be putting out a lot of new content and don't want you to miss that at all. So make sure you hit subscribe if you do like what you see in here. All right, the topic that is on a lot of people's minds, I feel like it's the question of the day, week, month. It's what everyone really wants to talk about, and not necessarily if you are collecting certain cards where you're not really concerned about values. I'll throw one out that I'm not really concerned about the value going up or down. Bobby Hebert 86 Topps rookie card, the ultimate Ragin' Cajun, one of the better Saints quarterbacks of all time. So that's pretty much telling you something right there. There are certain cards, obviously, in our collections we're not really that worried about, but there might be some that, a handful, even if you're a collector where you're like, yeah, I've paid pretty good coin for this. I would like to see maybe it appreciate over time. We are going to use as an example the 86 Fleer Michael Jordan rookie card today. The reason why I picked this one as the example, and granted one small, very, very small sample size, one of a trillion different cards out there, but I guess we could probably argue that this is one of the more liquid cards in the hobby. If you set any grade of this card 1 to 10 at 99-cent auction, you would probably do okay on this card. I think that this is one of the more wanted cards. It's on the bucket list. It's also a big PC card. It's a goal card for people. And like I said, whether it be a 1 or a 10, it's largely irrelevant as long as it's authentic. There are a lot of replica Michael Jordan rookie cards. So I think for a lot of people, myself included, I would love to own this card, but prices have gone so ballistic on this card, just being so iconic from that 86 Fleer set. And then of course, MJ the GOAT. It's a very, very wanted card in the hobby. I think that we could all agree on that. So if we look at the PSA 10 price points, and I'm going to use card ladder data in this video, and also, disclosure on card ladder data. It's going to take a sample of online sales. So it's not taking into account private sales, most card shop sales, card show sales. There's a lot of sales that are missing. So I know you could see this data and say, oh, well, I saw this card sell at a show for X. This looks to be too high or low or whatever. This is just really a sampling of online sales. They're pulling from eBay or PWCC or wherever. They're pulling data from these online sources to give us some sort of an idea, and they've got historical data. So it's not everything, but it's something, and it gives us an idea of kind of where card prices were, where they've been. All right, so if we look at the PSA 10, in 2006 to 19, if we're going just that 15-year period, really, we're talking about dormant pricing on this card for the most part. Actually, I'm lying a little bit. Steady increases on this thing, but not any major pops like what we saw over the last few years. Actually, not dormant pricing. It's been kind of that nice steady increase that I think a lot of folks talk about. This card had back in 2006, really a $4,000 or $5,000, maybe a $6,000 card. In 2019, it had edged up to $29,000, $30,000. So over a 15-year span of time, this thing is almost 4x'd, or about 4x'd, 400% over 15 years. That's pretty nice. Now, granted, one card out of a trillion cards doesn't represent the whole card market. I'm of the belief that every individual card, has its own market. The collectible space is highly, highly complex. I think that we can agree on that, especially seeing what's happened over the last few years. Just when you think that you know something about something, you figure out that you don't know something about that thing. So that's where we're at. All right, so then we hit the boom, of course, $800,000 sales on the PSA 10, and now it's kind of corrected back down to $150,000 to $200,000 as a threshold, I think we could say, depending on eye appeal. You could argue that Not every PSA 10 MJ rookie card is created the same. I know there's some that have Mike Baker labels on them. Top 5% eye appeal, top 10% eye appeal. So when you're just looking at those prices in a vacuum, it's not telling the whole story. So there's a lot going on with that, but still kind of gives us an idea, a range of a price point. 150, 200,000 is still what, 4, 5x what it was in 2019. And that was after a really nice gradual increase for that card. That's still really high compared historically to where this thing was. I mean, going back 2006, so what, 16, 17 years, it's a $5,000 card. And now it's a $150,000 to $200,000 card if you just kind of sat on these. It's pretty unbelievable. And you also have to take into account what was the population report for PSA 10s going back to 2006. Right now it's about 320, right? 321, that's what it's been sitting at. What was it in 2006? Lower. I'm sure it was lower. I don't know how lower, but was it 100? Was it 150? So even then you had $5,000 card with a lower pop report. So now you have higher pop report, higher pricing. It's kind of wild. But Dustin, what about PSA 9s or 8s? Like, no, not many people have the 10s. Absolutely. All right. So if we look at the same data, if we go back to 2006, a PSA 9, about $1,000 card. There's multiple sales kind of in that $1,000 range. By 2019, it's a $5,000 to $6,000 card. So you've seen a nice 5-6x growth over 15 years. And again, if we're looking at the last few years, you might think, that's pretty good. That's actually really good. That's really good if we're talking about true kind of investing and stuff. That's not bad at all. That's really not bad. Of course, folks got used to it just being like 10x in a week. That's the problem. That's why we've seen such a big correction over the last 2 years. Can you actually believe that now we're 2 years removed from all-time highs? So really, April 2021 was really where you saw a lot of all-time highs, and that's when it started to descend. We're 2 years into that. Can you believe it's already been 2 years? I can't. That's wild to think about. All right, so PSA 9, $1,000 in 2006, 2019, $5,000 to $6,000. Boom price, $70,000. And then it's come back down to about 18,000, 16, 17, 18,000 is where it sits. PSA 8, 2006, $500. 2019, $2,500. Boom time, 20. It got up to, there's a sale for $24,000. Woof. And now it's about $6,000, sitting in that $5,000 to $7,000 range for a PSA 8. So it's obviously no secret during the boom, big money rolled in here and flipped high-end cards, playing hot potato with high-end cards.
I'm losing my patience. You're kidding! Judge.
So when we're looking at comps, when you're looking at that 2020, 2021 price point, that was big money coming in and doing the flip game and then getting out. It's kind of like, you got the seals eating fish, and then killer whales came in and ate all the seals and then went away, and now we're just left with kind of the leftover seals and then the fish, the minnows like me. And so, of course, I am never trying to figure out highs, the tops and the bottoms of markets. That's for smarter people than me to try to figure out. There's a lot of predictive analysis out there, and that's all great. But I think if everyone kind of knew what was going to happen, everybody would be doing amazingly well. That's just not kind of the way that it works. We try to do our best. A lot of times, too, economic markers don't make sense. So you might have an economic marker where you're like, okay, the economy's doing this, so this is what asset prices should do, and then they don't do that thing. So there's really kind of no rhyme or reason. There are certain benchmarks that you can look at to try to gauge certain things, but I've listened to so many different markets, investing gurus on this or that or whatever, and people that really know their stuff. I'm not talking about investing gurus that are more kind of self-help people. I'm not talking about those folks. I'm talking about people that really dive into analytics, crunch the numbers, follow specific markets, and even that they get turned on their head as well. So if those folks that are doing it all day long, that are much smarter than me, also get turned around in this stuff, the average Joe is going to get turned around. I look at just kind of the economy in the US anyway, and I think globally it kind of all follows each other. It all works in tandem at times. but it doesn't look like to me there's any real economic markers that I'm looking at that would suggest big price hikes on high-end cards. It seems to me like it's just more of a game now of seeing where high-end cards come down, like kind of trying to find a bottom on some of this stuff. And it's also very specific to certain cards. I've said it a million times before. I think a lot of very mid-end cards got pushed up into the higher end based on hobby narrative. And now kind of hobby narrative has soothed over time. And now we're kind of seeing that decline down. Because of those narratives, you saw some massive price hikes and price drops, so that can be really, really tricky to navigate. We're back to where I think it's actually a really good time for collectors of certain cards and certain players, certain sets, but also really good opportunities on the lower to mid end for short-term flip type stuff. I think there's a lot of good activity. There's a variety of channels that are talking about what they're doing in that front. I'm doing a little bit more of that as well, and that's been fun. I think too, the buy raw to grade to sell. I don't necessarily think that we're at a point. I think a couple years ago, you could grade a card going back 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, you grade a card and it's 3x the price. I don't think that that's really the way it is anymore. I think you grade a card and yeah, maybe if you get a 10, you get a nice premium as opposed to a 9 or 9.5 or whatever it is. But I think gone are the days where, oh man, it's graded now, so it's automatically double or triple the price, quadruple. I think a lot of people did very well doing that going back years, but we're not there. People are grading a ton. We look at the grading data. It's incredible. The amount of cards, PSA, SGC, BGS, CSG, the big four companies are grading a ton of cards if we compare to what they were doing historically. So good sign there. I'm honestly surprised by it, but I'm just guessing here. I think a lot of the mid to high end cards, I would look at the next 12 months. For me personally, it's like I've got certain cards that are kind of grail cards I would love to have. Am I in a big rush to get them? Not yet, not yet, just because you haven't really seen, there's not any excitement factor to me that I'm seeing in the economy right now that's just thinking like, all right, we're heading into another bull market. It just feels like this is going to be kind of an elongated, little bit of a bearish time, which is fine. I mean, look, that's where big money and real money is made. If you are, buying, selling certain items, or if you're operating in traditional markets, whether it be stocks, bonds, real estate, whatever it is, a lot of folks, they get nervous, they get out of markets, and that's when prices drop dramatically and there are opportunities. And then when we get into the next bull market, it's again too late, so it's not timing the market, but it's also just being smart enough that if you're probably buying all the way through, you probably kind of average out okay if you're kind of really kind of studying, being smart and paying attention to what you're doing. All right, guys, let me know your thoughts. Do we have a little bit of room more to go down on some of that mid-end to high-end stuff? And again, I think on that lower end is a nice place to play. And we've talked about it where you can buy flip cards. That's a fun place. And then that maybe funds PC items and so forth. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Stay healthy, stay awesome, and I will talk to you again later.